What in the world is up, guys? Welcome back to the ATG Wrestling Podcast. I'm your resident marksman, TJ Takedown, and today we are going to be talking about, last time we had the first episode of the ATG Wrestling Podcast. I'll go ahead and put a link in the video, in the description, all that fun stuff if you want to go check that one out. We talked about the winner of the 2019 Women's Royal Rumble match, Becky Lynch, her perspective match, possible main event match of WrestleMania 35 with Ronda Rousey, and possibly Charlotte Flair as well. If you want to go check that one out, you're more than welcome to. Today we're going to be talking about the winner of the 2019 Men's Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins. But we're going to be talking a little bit less about Seth specifically and a little bit more about mainly the booking decision of having Seth choose his opponent, more or less force him to choose his opponent the night after the Royal Rumble, the very next night on Raw. With Becky, it made sense. There was no need to really force that decision. Everyone and their mother knew she was going to pick Ronda Rousey. She had literally just faced Asuka the night before anyway, so there really was no question. There really was no question about it. So that making that match official the next night makes a lot of sense story-wise. It also helps to, and I'll cover this when I talk about Seth, but the whole point of essentially choosing your opponent this early, like literally the night after the Royal Rumble, is to just immediately start building hype, immediately start, getting people excited for WrestleMania, getting as many butts in the seats as possible by marketing as many of the matches as possible. So again, shifting focus to Seth, it makes sense from a business perspective on why you would want honestly, either of these matches could feasibly be the main event match of WrestleMania 35. So it does make sense from a business standpoint to get both of these matches slated. The last match going is either going to be Becky Ronda or, Becky Ronda Charlotte, or Seth and whoever he would pick, just theoretically. I could see Brock Lesnar not going last if it wasn't Seth. I could see Daniel Bryan not going last if it wasn't Seth that they're going against. But theoretically, these are your main event matches. So it makes sense to advertise those as soon as possible. There's only an upside to just getting the word out and getting as many people in that place as possible. If there are still tickets, I don't really know if there are. I don't know. But essentially, so my whole thing today is going to be focusing around that booking decision of having Rollins choose on that night and who he chose. Those are going to be basically, those two things are essentially going to be everything that today's podcast revolves around. So point blank, just get right into business here. Do I think it was a good decision to force Seth to choose that night? Again, we've touched on the business reasoning for it, the business rationale. I've already said from a business standpoint, it does make sense. It's smart. I support it from a business standpoint, but from a story standpoint, from a booking standpoint, I actually have to disagree. I think this might have been the wrong way to go, just because the amount of things you could do with Seth on SmackDown is just really interesting. It's you could do a similar thing to what they're doing with Becky, having her on Raw and SmackDown. It seems like, even if it's not like every week, just having the ability to go from show to show. And I honestly can't even remember the last time Seth was on SmackDown. I think it was maybe the Survivor Series before last year when they invaded with the Shield. I think that may actually be the last time Seth was on SmackDown. So just seeing Seth on SmackDown would have been interesting, and having him interact with any of the roster on SmackDown, but specifically because the WWE Championship is on the line at Elimination Chamber, I think that's one big reason to not have him announce who he's going to face. Because what if we get a different champion at Elimination Chamber? We all know that that's not really likely, but again, it's like, don't treat it like it's a given that Daniel Bryan's going to go to WrestleMania, WWE. And even us as fans, like, nobody really expected Bray Wyatt to win the WWE Championship when he did, I think 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, at that year's Elimination Chamber. So crazy things can happen. So to just assume that it's definitely going to be either Lesnar or Bryan when the championship is on the line before WrestleMania, I think was really weird. And it's sort of weirdly undercut the threat of the title changing hands at Elimination Chamber. Plus, you know, you really, you could have done so many things building the potential clash between Rollins and Joe, Rollins and Orton, Rollins and Mustafa. Like, there's so many things that they could have done. And on an unrelated note, I really wish Andrade was in the chamber. I don't think I'm the only one. Cause God, could you, even if they just teased it, even if it was just a little tiny tease, Andrade versus Rollins. Oh, that would have been nice. Give him the rest of his name back, by the way, WWE. But yeah, I think it would have been really interesting, and I think it's just a completely wasted opportunity to elevate both brands, because, you know, Becky's going over to Raw, so of course that's going to be interesting. Seth could be going over to SmackDown. That makes SmackDown more interesting. It's just a win-win scenario. And on top of that, the other big thing is that you can't really do that much with just Seth and Paul Heyman. There's a limit to the amount of things that they can do just talking. So even if it's just a few weeks of, you know, sort of limiting that until after Elimination Chamber, where it's a smaller amount of time to have to sort of lean on Paul Heyman a little bit, I think they should have taken that opportunity. Yeah, really play up the fact that Seth could have chosen any of the Elimination Chamber people to face at WrestleMania, and just sort of have Heyman in the background, you know, subtly kind of like teasing and maybe kind of pushing him like, yeah, that's right, go for the low-hanging fruit, Seth. Nobody's gonna judge you if you want to face Daniel Bryan or Samoa Joe, or, you know, I'm sure you'd have a really easy WrestleMania weekend. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're still in the prime of your career. Why go through the hassle? Why go through, you know, the unbelievable agony that a championship match with Brock Lesnar would ultimately, inevitably deliver unto you? Like, just, there's so many good things that they could have done if they held off, you know, Rollins immediately having to choose that night, the very next night after winning the Royal Rumble. And I think it's a little bit of a disappointment, just because they had this potential of stuff that they could do and they just decided not to do it. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that there's enough stuff going on in WWE without flip-flopping Seth from show to show, but I would have liked to have seen it personally. And then that's not even like the most obvious thing is just, even if we were to just assume, yeah, Daniel's going to retain at the Elimination Chamber. Okay, fine. So it really is a choice between Daniel and Lesnar. Bro, are you telling me that you wouldn't want to see Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship? Like, literally, just a few years ago, the thought of that would have been absolutely insane. Like, Bryan Danielson versus Tyler Black for the WWE Championship, arguably in like one of, if not the main event of WrestleMania, because all that stuff's still in the air. So theoretically, in the main event of WrestleMania for the WWE Championship, like, that's just unreal. Almost as unreal as, AJ and Shinsuke last year. But, we all know how that went. Like, Daniel and Seth could have put on a really, really good match. And even though I'm still not sold on this whole Rowan thing, I don't know what they're doing with that. I don't know why. I don't really know where it's going. It's just kind of weird. I don't really think Daniel needed it, but whatever. Even with that, the idea of Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan is just really interesting. It's a match that's actually pretty fresh, too, because they haven't really clashed that much one-on-one. They haven't really done that many singles matches. Yeah, they had their run-ins in the days of the Shield and Team Hell No, but those are tag matches. And even if they did have like a one-off singles match, it's nothing compared to, single-star Rollins versus single-star Daniel Bryan. I keep wanting to say Dean Ambrose. What could have been? Man, I don't know what, all these plans that are just thrown up in the air because of injury and stuff, and damn cancer. And I don't know what would have originally happened. I don't know if there ever was going to be a very serious plan of Ambrose versus Rollins for the Universal Championship, but it sucks. It sucks that rivalry just face planted the way it did. It still eats me up inside. And then you may be asking yourself, well, Teach, if Rollins goes against Daniel Bryan, what's Lesnar gonna do? Well, it's very simple. You see, WWE did a happy accident at the Royal Rumble where they kind of put on a really good, interesting match between Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar. So instead of just having that go nowhere, what they could have done is just have Finn Balor win a number one contenders thingamajig or whatever, have him be the one that's going to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, but this time do Demon Finn. This time just do the Demon King. And I heard that for some reason they said it's going to be like exclusive to SummerSlam. I think that's stupid. I think that's the stupidest thing in the world. That's ridiculous. Why would you limit something like this to only SummerSlam? Now, I could see there being an unofficial thing of, well, he would only really whip it out at like the big four pay-per-views. That's the only time that he would really do it, at the big four. But I mean, first off, don't say it outright that it's only going to happen at these times. Don't do that. Have it be a surprise. But even then, don't limit it to and why SummerSlam? Who doesn't want to see Demon King Finn on the grandest stage of them all? That's when superstars are supposed to pull out all the stops. Why would Finn not do the Demon King at WrestleMania for the Universal title? Like, in my hypothetical, booking. I just think it's weird, and I think this is somewhat of a controversial statement, but I think now that Roman is gone indefinitely for probably at least 2 years, just, to be safe and to make sure that he kicks this thing, and I really hope that he does. I'm pulling for him. I know we all are as wrestling fans, as humans, just in general. Cancer sucks. It really, really sucks. I want to say another word, but I don't exactly know if I'm going to like the rating of this podcast and if I'm going to like use that kind of language. Yeah, I don't know, but you know what I want to say. But I think outside of Roman, I'm really struggling to think of who is a very viable candidate for dethroning Lesnar and doing it convincingly. Because, I mean, outside of Roman, and I stand by my decision, I've been saying it ever since last year, that WrestleMania 34. WrestleMania 34 was the time to pull the trigger on Roman. Just give him the frickin' title. I don't know why they didn't. It was weird. I didn't like it. That's a whole nother podcast. But outside of Roman, in my opinion, Demon King Finn is the only other person that realistically, booking-wise, is a credible threat to Lesnar, specifically because of the Royal Rumble match, but also because the Demon King persona of Finn Balor might be the most protected persona on the full-time roster these days, because I can't think of anyone who's been more or just as untouchable as that persona. Because, Braun Strowman's taken some hits booking-wise. Drew McIntyre's taken some hits booking-wise. So has Samoa Joe. So has Seth Rollins. So has, everyone... nobody looks on the level of Brock Lesnar, and that's a problem. Because when it comes time to then dethrone Brock Lesnar, it becomes a very real conversation of, okay, who? Nobody really looks like a credible threat. But the only persona I can think of realistically that has been just as protected as Brock Lesnar is the Demon King. Even Roman Reigns wasn't that protected, obviously, having him lose at WrestleMania and at Greatest Royal Rumble last year. I honestly can't think of anybody who's been built up in anywhere close to the ballpark that Brock Lesnar has been protected, and the way he's been booked to just be an absolute bulldozer. Even Roman had an uphill climb in terms of that. Demon Finn, I think, is the last resort to really kind of make it look like, okay, this could actually happen, and this could actually happen convincingly, specifically because of the Royal Rumble match as well, because the Royal Rumble match was good. It was great storytelling. It showed how smart and resourceful Finn was, and also how determined, showed that Lesnar is very much still vulnerable despite his booking. And also, especially with that post-match beatdown, it felt like it was setting up a thing of this isn't the last time that these two were going to fight. So, and then you just kind of completely leaving it on the table and moving on to Rollins is just kind of weird to me. I think it's really weird, actually. It feels like a story that's left on a cliffhanger and then the series just ends. It's like the author just throws up his hands and just goes, yeah, it's done. It just ends on a cliffhanger, an unsatisfying cliffhanger. And I'm just like, what? I mean, which kind of neatly dovetails into the fact that why should we believe that Seth Rollins can beat Brock Lesnar? This is the issue with pretty much any Brock Lesnar match outside of, versus Roman Reigns, or maybe in a multi-man match. But, I mean, it's what reason do we really have to honestly believe Seth Rollins can beat Brock Lesnar? I mean, yeah, Rollins has been hot for a while, but that's not because he's been looking, invincible or anything. He's taken losses, and he's been beat up a bunch of times by dudes that aren't Brock Lesnar. So it's just outside of a momentum thing, which you can only lean on so much, outside of momentum, there's really no reason for us to just out of nowhere just go, oh yeah, Seth can beat Brock Lesnar. Like, you have to realistically give us a reason to think he can. And I think they tried to address that with the whole weird Bobby Lashley thing. But Bobby Lashley ain't no Brock Lesnar. As much as Leo Rush likes to talk, no. Bobby Lashley is not Brock Lesnar. Bobby Lashley is a joke to me, honestly. I'm just like, nah. I'm not buying it, bruh. But it's just this weird thing. Like, you know what? I take that back. Take back what I said earlier. If you would have asked me a year ago from, like, right now, so before WrestleMania 34, if there was anyone other than Roman Reigns that could beat Lesnar, it would have been Braun Strowman. And then they screwed up Braun Strowman. So it's like, I would say outside of Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman would be the guy that would dethrone Brock Lesnar. But they had multiple times where they could have done that, and they clearly didn't want to for some reason. I mean, I'm one of the people that believes that Braun Strowman's much better as a chaser of a championship than an actual champion. So that would have kind of booked them into a weird corner, but they've definitely done a job for some reason now, more than any other time, of humanizing Braun Strowman so that he's not like this. He's not another Lesnar that just cannot be defeated. Like, they have shown us that, no, you can take out Braun Strowman if you're just, determined enough. But it's like, there's at least an argument for Braun despite the booking mishaps. Whereas with Seth, it's like, you guys need to start doing stuff to really convince us to take this match seriously. Because, as of right now, it's just a match with a foregone conclusion because none of us wants to really believe that they would keep this frickin' title on Lesnar. For God's sakes. And I swear, if Rollins doesn't beat Lesnar, I legitimately do not know who can. Because if they go back to Demon Finn after this, I'm going to be so upset because I'm like, why didn't you just do it at WrestleMania? So, I don't know. Why don't you guys tell me what you think in the comments section below? If you enjoyed this, you know what to do. I know I always get tired when people do the whole spiel, so that's why I just... If you enjoyed this, you know what to do. I'm not going to tell you to do it. So... Until next time, guys, I've been TJ Takedown from the ATG Wrestling Podcast, and I'll catch you guys later.